Hello, and welcome to the YouTube channel of the San Diego Horticultural Society. My name is Karen England. I am the SDHS President and Newsletter Editor. I'm happy to introduce to you the presenter for this recording from the September 2022 hybrid general meeting that took place at Congregation Beth Israel in the Golden Triangle area of San Diego and simultaneously on Zoom. San Diego garden celebrity Deborah Lee Baldwin is known globally as the Queen of Succulents. She launched the succulent craze in 2007 with her book, Designing with Succulents, now in a completely revised and updated edition. Prior to writing it and other bestsellers, Deborah was a scout and photojournalist for Sunset magazine. She lives in gardens on a half-acre in Hidden Meadows in San Diego's North County. Deborah has spoken at prestigious garden venues from Florida to Hawaii, and her YouTube videos have over 7 million views. In 2017, we honored her as the San Diego Horticultural Society's Horticulturist of the Year. Tonight's topic is smart, gorgeous, sensible succulent gardens. During her 20-year career as a succulent fashionista, Deborah Lee has seen it all, from front yards that sadly illustrate what not to do to homeowner design masterpieces. Deborah shows us the good, the bad, and the magnificent. You'll be inspired, amused, awed by beauty, impressed by practicality, and likely never see succulent gardens in the same way again. With humor, common sense, and horticultural know-how, Deborah deepens our knowledge and appreciation of these versatile low-water plants. And before I turn it over to Deborah, visit our website, sdhort.org, to learn how to join or renew with our society. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel and press the like button. It will help us to accomplish our mission, which is to inspire and educate the people of San Diego County to grow and enjoy plants, and to create beautiful, environmentally responsible gardens and landscapes, as well as help us meet our vision, which is to champion regionally appropriate horticulture in San Diego County. Without further ado, here is Deborah Lee Baldwin.
Well, hello. You let me know if you can't hear me. Now, can I take this microphone off of the stand, Carrie, or is that not okay? Or?
Well, you need both of those microphones.
Oh, I will go.
Yeah.
I will stay put.
Okay, we're going to pause really quickly because
I think I need to update that picture. Do not come like this with your
yeah, don't do that.
Camera picture there. Why are they not?
Okay, so we're trying to get the Zoom to sync. Right. Thank you for your patience.
No. So as Karen was doing, you did for them to hear.
Okay.
Do you need it raised?
I kind of shifted it to get a little higher. How's that? Everybody seems pleased with the sound. Okay, I'm going to keep it right where it is. All right, let's get going.
I don't know why they're not saying.
I'm so glad you all came. Thank you.
Sure.
What a treat. You know, this venue has so many great memories for me. It was where I launched the second edition of Designing with Succulents in 2017. And it was a party. It was so much fun. And, you know, I launched the first edition at the Del Mar venue that we used to meet at. And that was the very first presentation I ever gave. And I was scared to death. And you were also gracious and welcoming. Was there anybody there that day? You were, yay, oh,
Sharing.
well, what you're seeing on the screen is my newsletter, Welcome, which I send out whenever you sign up, whenever anyone signs up, they get this welcome newsletter. How many of you subscribe to my Celebrating the Joy of Succulents? Okay, quite a few of you. There is a sign-up sheet going around. That's what those clipboards are. So if you'd like to receive it, it's basically whatever has me excited in the world of succulents. And I'm a career journalist. I can't help it. I keep producing content. And I have a nose for news that doesn't quit where succulents are concerned. So when I get excited, I have to share it. And I share it in my newsletter, which has 8,500 subscribers. And also at the same time, I generally create a page for DeborahLeeBaldwin.com and sometimes a video as well. So you know that if you subscribe, that I have a lot of fun. I'm semi-retired, but my work is my play, and I believe it shows. Are we good? We're not sure. Okay. You want me just to keep going? They do.
Everyone wants you to keep going.
Okay. All right, let's not worry about it.
Karen, I think you're now using the correct microphone, so the
I
sound
need
is
to
much
forward the
better.
slide. Is this what you want me to use to do that, Terry?
No, you're gonna have to do it from the
Okay,
laptop itself.
okay, from,
Once Karen.
all right.
not here.
Well, the next slide is pretty boring. It's just the covers of my books. And they're kind of my children. You know, when you write a book, you launch it, you nurture it, you get the word out about it, you hope people notice, you hope they say it's beautiful. I'm sorry? Full screen. Okay. There.
But it's not showing up
This is kind of like a mirror. I'm kind of curious what I look like.
You look great.
She says I look great. Okay.
Okay, wait.
Okay. I'm going to keep going. I don't want you sitting there just wondering what the heck. Okay. So about my three books, my three baby books are now all grown up and are doing very well. They have been credited with launching worldwide interest in succulent plants, for which I'm very proud. The second edition of Designing with Succulents is completely revised from the first. It came out 10 years later, and there were just so many things that had happened in the 10 years since the first edition came out. So it's my magnum opus when it comes to all things succulent landscapes primarily. And then I have Succulent Container Gardens, which is about growing the plants in any kind of container, including wreaths and terrariums and that. And Succulent Simplified, which is a great introduction to the beginner and a good refresher course for anyone who loves succulents. Well, what I'm going to be talking to you about today, and I think we are probably on the first slide after the book. That looks right to me. Yes. Well,
Stay here.
she's going to stay here. Okay. That's fine.
I don't know how else to get it to keep working right.
That's fine. Well, you know, we're trying to do this on Zoom at the same time. So the fact that they can do that at all is remarkable. So please appreciate the work that Karen and Terry are doing to overcome any tech glitches. So my topic is the great succulent gardens I've seen that I can't resist sharing, that I just, you know, it's so delicious to go back through the decades and see my favorite photos, my favorite gardens, and the memories that come with them, and the people I've met, and how brilliant and creative these designers and homeowners are. So that it's a bit of a retrospective, but with a sneaky twist. I'm going to show you some what not to do's. Yes. And I want you to watch for them, Because you're going to be looking at a picture like the one on the screen right now, and you're thinking, yeah, well, it looks okay. Is that a what not to do? And if it is, have I been guilty of it? Yes. So you will find out what not to do. And if you haven't done it, you will feel very proud of yourself. Are you ready? What do you think? Is this a what not to do? Or is this a lovely garden? Or sneakily, is it both? Well, I actually like the way it looks. I think it's pretty. Should I tell you where it is? If it was just us and not the entire internet, I probably would. I don't want to embarrass anyone. But I suspect that the designer was more of a florist than a gardener or a succulent expert. And I have a reason for thinking that, which, you know, whatever. The reason I think that is that it's a very tightly packed floral style arrangement. And it really emphasizes agaves. Now I have to give the designer credit for not installing very large, potentially large agaves, but it's a crammed arrangement and it makes me nervous to look at it, as pretty as it is, because all I can think is that needs to be thinned out or it will very soon. So that's the what not to do aspect of it. Okay, so let's see a similar garden. Yeah. Right here? Yeah. Okay. This is up in Rolling Hills Estates. It's one of my favorite gardens, owned by Jim Gardner, who is indeed a gardener. He's a retired physician and also a potter. And he has a spectacular garden, and his eye for design really shows. And you see, Jim's done something similar here, but the difference is there's actually breathing room amid the succulents, and the combination is very pleasing to the eye, the colors. So there's room to grow, but most importantly, if you take nothing else away today, you will remember to know how big a plant's going to get before you plant it, especially, I see some of you landscapers are nodding, especially if it's an agave. Yes, they turn into behemoths. So what you're seeing here in Jim's garden, that ground cover is a sedum and it is a succulent, and it's very happy on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, which would mean something comparable to Encinitas and points west in our area. I couldn't grow it. I live in North Escondido, sorry. You know, I have to use an inorganic top dressing to surround my plants. Now, someone had asked that I cover mangaves. Well, I was planning on it, so isn't that great? Those purple plants in the foreground are mangave, which is an intergeneric cross between manfreda and agave. They're characterized by freckles, which they get from their manfreda heritage, and they look a lot like agaves. Their cultivation is the same as agaves, and for that matter, most succulents. I'm not going to cover cultivation, but if you want to ask me about it at the end, that's fine. It's all over my website and books. But what Jim has done here is he's planted them knowing how big they'll get so that they won't encroach on the pathway. The big drawback to mangaves, I can only think of one, is that they're very brittle. The leaves are very brittle. You don't dare step on them. You have to be very careful when you plant them. But the good news is I grow over a dozen varieties, and they, you'd think like agaves, they would bloom and die, but they don't. They bloom, you cut off the bloom stalks, and all these offsets form from the core of the plant. Now, maybe one will come along that's very agave-like in its propagation, and it does die after blooming, but mine have not proven to be monocarpic. So it's a real pleasure to see that I still have the plants flush, plus all the little babies in the center. You're probably wondering what that gorgeous blue agave is. That is agave ovatifolia. If you know your Latin, you know that means egg-shaped leaves. It's this big, gorgeous, almost sphere. It's a hard sell though in nurseries because when little, it looks like Agave Americana. And it's a shame because it's a fantastic landscape agave. I don't want to spend too much time on any one garden, but there's some Agave Lopantha going on there, both the solid green and the quadricolor, and also the orange Alavan Balanite. So definitely a what to do garden. What do you think? Well, what is it? Is it a what not to do, or is it a fairly okay garden? Oh, come on. It's about as dreadful a garden as you'll ever see, people. Now, most of my what not to do's are in my own neighborhood. My neighbor, Laura Pasternak, is here. she and I walk a lot. And Laura, this is why I pull out my camera. Yeah. Okay, what is horrible about this? Well, obviously not the agave in the center. That's a very healthy, happy blue glow. Everything else is horrendous. Planting century plants right up against the house is a really bad idea. They just get huge. The plants are underwatered, looking dreadful, and there are weeds. But what offends me the most is that top dressing. That is some kind of bark that turns black. Maybe you can tell me what it is, but it looks like they dumped the contents of their fire pit on their front yard. Okay, so what could we do to make this better, or what might have happened ahead of time to prevent this? This is a garden by Steve McDearman for John and Chris Gleason in Carmel Valley, and this is right after installation. So what you're seeing is not a lot of plants. It's mostly inorganic rock and top dressing. There's the golden gravel, there's the rubble rock, there are the boulders, and then they reconfigured the pathway to the front door, which was once concrete, but now they've got a nice sweep to it, and the pavers. So in general, you can do about 50-50 plants and rock material and have a great garden. It's low maintenance and low water. After all, rocks need no water. And you see there the blue agave, like the one in the what not to do garden. And what I call a landscape designer's secret weapon, barrel cactus. Oh, thank goodness, some of you are nodding. I thought cactus was going to be a really hard sell, but maybe not. You're pretty sophisticated, you Horticultural Society members. Okay, this is the same garden a year after installation, and you can see that the top dressing is a little less noticeable. The gravel has been encroached upon as the plants have grown. So there's not a lot going on with the blue agave. Is that yellow? Okay, that yellow line's not on the screen. Can you see that okay? There's a lot of light on that screen. Yeah, is that okay? All right. There's a Dracaena Draco, a dragon tree there at about 1 o'clock. Variegated Agave Americana Medio Picta Alba at 3 o'clock. Barrel cacti, of course, and some Senecio mandrilice, the blue, that will eventually merge and make a nice sort of flow through the garden. Do you recognize her? Yes, she's here today. This is Laura Eubanks. And Laura, when I was going through my favorite garden photos, I ran across this one. And it's when you were doing the jewel box garden, you were just starting out. This was 2013. If I recall correctly, you didn't feel comfortable doing a video. I had to talk you into it, but maybe my memory's wrong, but you're nodding. No, she was shy. And so I said to Laura, oh my gosh, you are so articulate. You are so good at your design. You're great on camera. Let me do a video of you. So we did this jewel box garden that she had done for a client in Rancho Bernardo. And then you can see that she really is the queen of top dressings, using colorful swaths of lava rock and Also mounding the soil, another really smart thing to do. And the succulents are colorful and also flow through the composition. So those are all signatures of Lori Eubanks that she, of course, has gone on to much bigger and better things. In fact, in 2015, 2 years after this appeared on my YouTube channel, she started her own. And it has, Laura, let's see if I got the stats right. It has 1,000 videos and 23 million views since 2015. So good job, girl. As for this particular video of this garden on my channel, well, Laura, it's the most popular video on my channel with 360,000 views. Thank you. I take full credit for your success. Well, I didn't want you to think that this was just going to be about landscapes. There are those of you who have very small gardens and prefer to garden in pots, and you can have a potted garden. You can have an entire garden in pots. Succulents really do well in pots. This particular potted garden is owned by Nancy Zingrave, whom I visited not too long ago. I released a video of her garden a couple of months ago. And she has a theme to her garden. So that's something to take away today too, is define the theme you want for your garden. Define your look, define your style, and try to be consistent with that because it makes a difference, just as it does in your architecture, interiors, and even your clothing style. So Nancy's theme is hacienda style, and you can see she has a lot of pots, Talavera pots from Mexico. Oh, and you know, I just want to say up front that I'm tempted to say, go watch the video, go read about it on my website or whatever, but that's true of almost everything I'm going to show you. So I'm not going to repeat that, besides it sounds like a big advertisement. I have no ads on my website, none, right? Am I crazy? Or just, is it a relief? I think it's a relief. I don't like going to websites where you can't read anything for the ads. All right. Do you like this? You're scared to say now, aren't you? I love it. And I'll tell you why. This is the garden of Pat Armenino in the Bay Area. She sent me this photo, and I was so impressed by Pat. She gardens in a wheelchair. So she has her garden in pots arranged. These are all stacked. They're not on shelves, so that she can wheel right up to whatever with her clippers and garden and put a pot on her lap and take it to an area where it might need soil or repotting. And I think it's an absolutely brilliant garden. So is this a what to do? You bet. You're shaking your head cautiously. Yeah, what, is Deborah going to tell you, this is the penultimate? No, this is weird. I hardly know what to say about it. I mean, okay, you know when you're in an airplane and you're looking out and you look at the terrain below, and if you can see, repetition of circles or grids, you know that human beings have put their stamp on that terrain, because we do that. We like regularity, and we impose that on the natural surrounding. So if you want a natural garden, don't do that. You know, when you find yourself lining plants up like soldiers, stop and think, would they do it in nature? Probably not. Okay, what we might do to fix this, I really don't think it needs all that much. If you could get a skip loader, you could pile that gravel, right? Yeah. And maybe, oh, I can get rid of that green vendor board. What were they thinking? And the mushroom farm is only 15 minutes away. Bring in tons and tons of mushroom compost, create mounds mixed with decomposed granite pumice, plant right into them. Oh, well, to your infrastructure, your irrigation and stuff. But anyway, yeah, this could be really nice. And then top dress with the gravel and create pathways, right? 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 Don't tell my neighbors. Okay, so when you look at this, I mean, it's a stunning garden in Kensington, but look at the sight line. Your eye goes right down that path to the front steps, flanked by 2 blue pots. Those pots are empty. So they're there for a purely decorative reason. Now, there's a lesson here. This is a garden by Michael Buckner. He has a very keen eye for design, and being a former succulent nursery owner, really understands his plants. From a design standpoint, those pots are amazing. And I think this is really almost as much about the pots as it is about the plants. Look at the use of primary colors here, red, blue, and yellow. The house is yellow, that's a given, that's a non-negotiable. The steps are red, red stands out, and blue. Those 3 colors are repeated in the garden. Succulents are very accommodating when it comes to red, blue, and yellow. You can do this in your own garden very successfully. So what we're looking at are some Senecios. One of Buckner's signatures is that tree Kalanchoe, Kalanchoe beharensis, and a barrel cactus. Barrel cactus, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. Oh, you're saying, some of you, I wouldn't have a cactus. Nasty, mean, spiky things. Okay, don't. Hey, you know, that's cool. But just picture this garden without them. It's not as interesting, is it? What do they add to it? Texture and color and symmetry of the spheres. This is poetry. This is a succulent garden elevated to a fresh and exciting level. This is the front yard of Jeff Moore, owner of Solana Succulents, and it does everything right. You see the repetition of the red in the aloes on either side. There's also red in the stems of the Horticultural afra variegata at upper left. The yellow in that plant is repeated by the yellow in the barrel cacti, and the blue Senecio ties the whole composition together and gives that contrasting color. So, and you know, being a grower, he knows how big they'll get. All right, so this is at Waterwise Botanicals Nursery in North San Diego County. If you're not aware of it, you need to be. It is an outstanding source of low water plants and succulents. What you're looking at is a 3-plant combo that is, close enough to the primary colors. That plant in the background is Dazzlerian wheelwright, and it has thin leaves. So how can it possibly be a succulent? Well, a succulent by definition is a plant that withstands periods of drought by storing water in its tissues. It has a trunk that stores water, and that's also true of yuccas and the thin-leaved succulents that you look at and you think, why is that called a succulent? Okay, so Dazzlerians, and then in the center, that marvelous pink Opuntia, that's Opuntia Santa Rita, needs a lot of sun to turn that color. You should just see it in Arizona, it's phenomenal. And in the foreground, the landscape designer's secret weapon. Almost no water for something like this because all 3 of those plants are indigenous. They're native to our area. So you just need to water them maybe in the dead heat of summer when they start to look like they're dying. But not all succulents that look like they're dying are actually dying. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Laura, do you remember this? Okay, my there's two Lauras here. There's Laura Eubanks and then there's Laura Pasternak, my neighbor. And Laura Pasternak was with me when I shot this. Didn't we just walk past this and it was still upright after they fixed it? Yeah. Okay. What's this called? Oh, what not to do. Yes. Very good. Because they store water, succulents can get really heavy. So just imagine a barrel cactus filled with moisture, heavy, right? Heavier than a bucket full of water. And so it's planted on a too steep a slope and the roots are very shallow. So as it got bigger and bigger, it just tumbled over. So not only know how big your plants are going to get, but also know that certain ones need to be secured or they could fall over. Well, yes, no.
No.
When I showed this photo to my editor at Sunset Magazine, she was over the moon. She loved it. It not only made it into the magazine, but it was reprinted twice in their landscaping books. What did she love about it? Well, symmetry, thank you, yes. But I think also, you know, when you get to see the same things over and over again, it's like a reality show, like one of those fashion, like Project Runway, where they've already seen everything, just show me something different. This is very different, this is fresh, it's minimal. It's also, you know, very practical. And you can see that there's a lot of gravel, there are square pavers, barrel cacti at the intersections. The whole thing's broken up by that aloe bainzii tree, which gives somewhat of a relief to the checkerboard without, you know, so it's not overdone so much. And there is drip irrigation underneath those barrel cacti that is used only about this time of the year, you know, the hot, dry season. This is homeowner designed, Peter Bailey. Okay, this, if you just absolutely flat out refuse to have barrel cactus, but you still want something spherical in your garden, you can achieve a very similar look with rounded pots that you repeat. Now, I'm not showing a lot of repetition here. I'm just showing you a rounded pot in my own garden. And I really like the way it turned out because, you know, when you plant the pretty little ones, the little graptivarias and the hybrids, they get lost in a garden. You know, I think Laura Eubanks calls them annuals because they tend to just disappear. Is that right, Laura? Yeah. But I wanted to show them off, so I elevated them in a pot with a cascader, a Thonacapensis, and also I liked the juxtaposition of my favorite echeveria for the landscape, Sahara. Echeveria Sahara. If any of you remember Bill Teague, he gave me my first Athona cuttings, and every Athona patch I have in my garden now comes from them. I love it. Okay, so you can do pots in the garden. This is in Jeannie Meadows' garden in Fallbrook, and you can see that she has a lot of fine textured top dressing. And it's a tidy garden, and there's not a lot of bare dirt showing. But what she's done here is she's just taken a pedestal pot and planted it and set it in a bare spot. And it's near her front door, so it gives the eye a place to pause, and it's pretty. The secret to planting a pedestal pot is to mound the soil so that the soil has as much of a mound as the pot is rounded. Okay, so you're almost creating like an almond shape, not quite a sphere with the soil. And then you plant above the pot rim into the tightly packed potting soil. And the plants root and they tie the whole thing together. So it's stable. That's how you get that look. People, please tell me you haven't done this. I know that Agave Americana pups are free for the taking. I have one that I got from somebody's recycling trash, green bin. It was what was on the curb. I didn't go dumpster diving, but I loved it. I called it Big Blue. I cried when it bloomed. But this, just because something's free doesn't mean you need to plant it right on the curb where people open their car doors, or to torment AT&T by putting it right where they have to access their boxes. Come on. And okay, they pruned it back. Does that make it all right? How big do these things get? As big as Volkswagens, yeah. Yeah, what's gonna happen? It's gonna get harder and harder to remove these because they're going to get bigger and bigger. And now, no, actually, 2 years ago was the time to remove them. Don't do this. I see it all the time, and it's one of my pet peeves. Here's how you grow Agave Americana. Now, this is the garden of Hannah and Howard Jarson in Rancho Santa Fe, homeowners. Hannah is phenomenal with the way she grooms and refines her succulent garden. She's an aloe collector. And that's what you do, people. I mean, granted, they've got some property, but this is what big succulents are for. The distance on a slope, where they're the focal point, where they make a dramatic presence, where they're colorful and interesting. So we have beautiful. I mean, I never said Agave Americana wasn't beautiful. It is beautiful, and it is beautiful there. And I like this particular vantage point because there's negative space in the foreground that leads your eye across the driveway to a lovely colony of barrel cactus. Notice how they glow in backlit. And up on the slope, the agaves. Being an aloe collector, this is just one of Hannah's aloes, Aloe ferox on the left. What is this? It's sad. It is a what not to do. And this is time to get serious because there's a lot of death and destruction out there thanks to the agave snout weevil. Have you encountered agave snout weevil? If you have agaves, you certainly will, if not already. It started in Mexico in the tequila fields, Agave teculana. It's a flightless beetle, but so it took it a while to cross into the United States, but once it did, well, it was right about the same time we were all planting agaves. Somebody started the succulent phenomenon, it took off, and before you knew it, everybody had an agave in their garden. I don't know who to blame for that, but it made it possible for the beetle to move through every landscape and every community in California and the Southwest. And despite being flightless, it has flown across the Atlantic and is now infesting gardens in Spain, Portugal, Italy, and other warm countries of Europe. How did it fly? In someone's suitcase, attached to a cup of an agave, I'm guessing. I'm proud of the fact that I think I have the most comprehensive page anywhere on the internet about the agave snout weevil, which I have researched since 2017. If you want to know how to prevent it and treat it, go to DeborahLeeBaldwin.com and type in the search bar, weevil. Okay, is this a what not to do, or is this nice? What do you, let's do a show of hands. Everybody who thinks this is a what not to do. Okay, shall I just assume the rest of you are either asleep or just love it? Well, okay, that was unfair. This is both. I like how they planted those agaves. This is a property that's got enough room for them. And they can't get into trouble here. They can puff all they want, and they're pretty in the, in a big enough space for them. But what has me just, oh, how can I express my chagrin every time I see this? A dry creek bed flowing along the top of the soil. Now they went to all the trouble to get rounded river rock, I don't know how many yards, hauled it in and dumped it on top of the soil without digging any kind of a ditch to lend any kind of credibility to the fact that this is supposed to be a dry creek bed. Again, apologies to my neighbors. I'm going to be drummed out of Hidden Meadows after this. Okay, this is my favorite dry creek bed of all time. This happens to be at Hannah Jarson's home. And oh my gosh, I just love this. I like the way that it is broad and you can tell it's a creek bed. I like the way the plants are planted along the borders of it, the banks of it. I like the fact that it is a pathway you can walk down from front to backyard. It's a great way to use a side yard. I like the way that it funnels rainwater from gutters from the house into the garden. And I like the way those melaleuca trees have been trimmed so they don't compromise the view. Yeah, Laura, do you remember this one? Laura and I were walking past this and I just had to take a picture. You see, these people started out with a nice landing strip of fake grass. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not called that. It's called synthetic turf. Well, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. I think it's a water-saving way to go. And I think it's aesthetically okay. So they had a great idea. They put it where you open your passenger door and you exit your car. Well, they liked it so much that they decided to pave the slope with it, thereby making a very jarring lawn look, because no way could a lawn that steep ever get mowed, nor would a lawn ever grow in that particular grade. It's just, let's talk slopes. You recognize this garden? Yeah, of course you do. It's the garden of Jim Bishop, past president of the San Diego Horticultural Society. One of our all-time favorite gardens. Jim is a plantsman, and he gets the most exotic and gorgeous and colorful plants. And on this, I don't know, what is it, an acre overlooking Mission Valley, very steep, he has managed to terrace it and plant it and maintain it and do the most amazing mosaics, and it's on tour all the time. And this is it looking, dare I say it's best. This is one of Jim's own photos. He posts a lot on Facebook. But this was in winter when the aloes were in bloom. And that's where all the color is coming from. You know, you can always tell a Jim Bishop garden by the blue bottles, right? You see the blue bottles down there at lower right? Yeah, barely. Okay, they show up better here on the screen. Hannah's garden again, Hannah Jarson. Very simple approach to covering a slope. You see one of her beautiful aloe feroxes there on the left, and a massive planting of all things, jade. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many of us have contempt for jade plant, the poor thing. It's just a workhouse of a garden plant. It needs almost no water. It's the last plant standing in a neglected garden. It's been around forever, and people tear it out. Horticulturists tear it out because they want something fancier and more unusual and rare. I won't name names. She's not here tonight. But what Hannah's done here, as she's chosen not just ordinary Crassula ovata, but Crassula ovata Hummel's sunset jade, which has yellow leaves, and it glows beautifully. And we're looking at it along with the aloe in midwinter, so that's when you get a lot of bloom on it. But yes, you could plant it like this and get a big cushiony cloud of jade that basically takes care of itself, doesn't get any bigger, doesn't cause any problems. And just from a design note, I really like that agave in the background. That is Agave Weberi Arizona Star, and the variegation on that really goes well with the yellow-leaved jade. This is my own garden. Be nice. I live on a steep slope, and my whole garden is terraced, more or less. And I love ice plant. I can't get enough of the big, bold, brilliant colors. Unfortunately, most ice plants only bloom in spring, but I found one that blooms off and on all year. It's Lampranthus lemon. It's for sale at Oasis Nursery, North Broadway in Escondido. And then I have some just regular Chrysanthemum floribundum. It's kind of nice because the complementary colors of the yellow and the purple work together. You know, I think most of you, I know I'm this way. When I moved into my home, I have a half-acre garden. Now, most of it was landscaped. And I just basically add things to it or edit. And I think most of you probably have existing plants. You don't really need or want a 100% dedicated succulent garden, but you like the idea of adding succulents to parts of your garden, maybe even having a special area that is a succulent garden, like the one that Hannah Eubanks just did, my latest video, for Susan Morse. Remember Susan Morse? She's probably watching it on Zoom. Hi, Susan, wherever you are. It's an undersea themed succulent garden. So that's an example of blending a succulent garden. But in our slope series here, I really like this. This is in Rolling Hills Estates as well, up in the Palos Verdes Peninsula. It is the garden of Nancy Zinner, and she wanted to do something pretty on her slope because that's what she sees from her backyard and pool. I had never seen anything like this, but it's really all about the companion plants to the succulents. The succulents are primarily Horticultural afro-variegata, very common, trailer with tiny yellow leaves and red stems. And the Senecio talanoides or vitalis, which is green and upright and shrubby, and then the creeping blue Senecio mandrilice. But what really makes this interesting is the texture of the shrubs that were added, which are fairly low water. So this is not really a low water landscape, but I think it really works with the golden breath of heaven. Look at that, doesn't that stand out beautifully? The variegated dwarf phormium and the purple loropetalum. And this is in my neighborhood, which is not a hint that it's a what not to do. This is very much a to-do garden. This is the garden of Mark and Marcia Rafter, who are artists in Hidden Meadows, north of Escondido. And this is what Marcia sees from her studio. She teaches classes there. And Mark did the dragonfly, Marcia does mosaic, and they just wanted a lot of color. They worked with Steve McDermott on the design. That is a dazzlerian over there on the left, and in the foreground is a agave guingola variegated. Cultivar name is creme brulee. I love the colors. I love a colorful garden. And we were talking about mounds and the importance of mounding the soil. And this is the backyard of the owner of Hidden Agave Nursery, Jeremy Spath. And yes, it is hidden on North Broadway, and so, you know, not far from Oasis. And what Jeremy has done here, he's a landscape designer, and he's all about agaves. But he's done a great job of showcasing these thug-like, old, spiky, thick-leaved plants with much feathery, dainty, contrasting textures, which I just love. I love the look of it. And I think what we're looking at there is some Santolina and, oh, and he has this all throughout the garden. And I'd never heard of it until he told me. Thymophila. Does that ring a bell? The yellow flowering mounded shrub, Thymophila. Now, did you see this garden when it was on tour? Yes. Pam and Tim's garden, the Jara garden, they're here tonight. Thank you for sharing your garden, not only on the tour, but also with me. I was on it like a hound on a meatball. It was just such a delight to see what they did in a residential lot. They created, I think it's 7 outdoor rooms, all distinct and having their own unique function. That particular, you know, because it was on the Hort Society tour, let me give you the stats. Okay, so for the Jara Garden, on my YouTube channel, it's had 25,000 views since April and 70 glowing comments. Well, all the comments were glowing. So, but this is a great example of a pathway that leads the eye into various parts of the garden. And I like the fact that it's broken up closer on this side and more solid as you go down. And the fact that it's more serpentine, it's not flat, straight. I mean, it's flat, but it's not arrow straight. It's very natural. This garden is by Randy Laurie. He's a landscape designer who's here tonight. I see you over there in a striped shirt. And it's is it North Park, Randy? Mission Hills, right. The owners just love to have a strolling garden, and they entertain a lot, and the garden just sucks them right out of, you know, the house and the patio areas to explore. And Randy keeps it as a living sculpture gallery. It's a work of art that you walk through. And it's, you know, it's been a while since I've been there, Randy. You need to take me back through it. But it's just a delight to tour. And I think it's been on tours, hasn't it? Yeah. No. I'm sorry? 2 acres. Okay. I didn't realize it was that big. But anyway, it's great fun to see. It's beautiful. Interestingly enough, there's some Agave desmetiana that are blooming there. Did you decide that you were going to replant more desmetiana? They bloom out pretty quickly. Yeah, see, that's kind of a what not to plant, because it's a beautiful agave, but oh, you know, you lose it in about 3 to 5 years. But bloom spikes are stunning and certainly worth having a closer look at. And that's a bromeliad in the foreground on the left. Do you remember the name of it? No, I don't remember. I don't either. Yeah, that's a silver something. Yeah, but another example of a great pathway. Now, I'm a big believer in gravel pathways because I discovered that it's great for security. Nobody can sneak up on me. It's crunchy. So I'm not all that worried about people sneaking up on me, but it's always nice to know, you know, that the dog or the husband have found me. This is another garden by Steve McDermott. It's a very new garden. I know that must seem odd to you because the plant material is mature. And that was brought in because they wanted to create a sculpture garden of succulents.
Come on.
A very dry garden, one that needs almost no irrigation.
Landscapes.
This is the garden of Diane.
They're really, I mean, phenomenal. It's all San Diego.
I'm watching. And
Totally.
so you see the.
Yeah.
This
It's
is going to
amazing.
be a future subject for me. But I think it's cool,
Oh,
and I love the serpentine look of the pathway that leads to the front door, and then the second pathway beyond, over by the big aloe Hercules, leads to a gate that goes into the backyard. Oh, I'm almost done. And I don't even know what time it is, but I thought if I had time, I would show you 3 more what not to do's. Is that okay? Where's Karen? Do it. Okay. Do you know what the what not to do is here? You probably have no idea. I mean, it doesn't exactly speak to you from the photo. The what not to do is when your aeoniums start to look really ratty and dead this time of the year, after a really long dry spell, you know, they go dormant in the summer and they just don't grow, and to protect their vital cores from the heat and the sun, they close up, they shrink. And then that exposes, you know, dry dead leaves at the base of the rosette. And this is what, I mean, this is actually, there are a lot that look a lot worse than this. This is in my next door neighbor's garden. And yeah, I would have, why does that matter? It doesn't matter. They don't ask my advice. But if they did, I would say, don't yank that out. Leave it. That's what they look like. That's okay. That's normal. Back away from the plant. Because in 6 months, it's going to look like the one on the right. In fact, that is the same plant. That's what happens when the winter rains come and aeoniums come out of dormancy. They just look vibrant and vital and alive and amazing. I like my neighbors. Some of them might not like me after this. This is my own garden. This is a what not to do. The what not to do here is to assume that Opuntia, the paddle cactus, needs absolutely no irrigation whatsoever at any time of the year for any reason. Well, this Opuntia drew on its reserves, its moist flesh, and you can see how it's desiccated. You can see the shriveling in the pads. And I walk by it and I think, yeah, good job. You know, that's what you're supposed to do, your cactus. Well, finally, one pad in the middle could not sustain the weight of the pads on top of it, and it just bent over. And I thought, oh, okay. You know, I don't talk to my plants. I listen to them. And this one was saying, water me, for heaven's sakes, Deborah. So I put a hose on drip at the base of the plant. And in 2 days, the hydraulic pressure had made that stand back up again. And I wish I could have had a time lapse of it. It would have been so cool. You'll just have to take my word for it. But there's still lines from where it creased. And my last but one slide. This is my least favorite plant on the planet. I have been waiting all day to tell you the name of it. I'm going to start with the Latin name. It's Ostrocylindropuntia subulata. Hold your applause. Common name Eve's needle, and it's a cholla, okay? And cholla is similar to Opuntia. It used to be part of the genus Opuntia. It propagates by breaking off, and then those cylindrical pads have all all they need to start a new plant. And once it gets a foothold in a garden, it will spread. And it's just, it has these concealed spines. And it put my hairdresser out of business because she was pruning it back, and she, oh, I don't even want to tell you, but she got a spine under her thumb, and she had to have multiple procedures. It was horrible. I guess cholla in general is a threat in that way. You see a lot of it in the desert, and it's beautiful, but there is no reason why we in Southern California should allow Eve's needle to take over our gardens and endanger our hairdressers and children. Or, I mean, really? Next to a mailbox? Do they hate their mail delivery person? And that is my last slide. Thank you for having me.
Do we have time for questions?
Okay, we're going to take some questions from the room and on Zoom, but I need to go. All right. Okay, so okay. If you have a question on Zoom, put it in the chat, and I'm going to have you do. Sure. Okay. Okay. All right. Questions? And yes.
Okay, so the question.
Tell the question. Yeah.
Yes, the question is on Agave culture. Grow them in sun or shade. Now, do we know where this person lives? Because, you know, maybe they're in, if they're west of the 15, full sun, but if they're east of the 15, it would be morning and afternoon sun with protection from full hot midday sun. I mean, that's ideal, but you just, you know, it's different. You have a maritime climate gives you much more flexibility with these things. Does that make sense?
It did to me.
Oh, good. Oh, Karen's on board. Good.
Yeah. Are allomites getting more widespread?
Alomite, yes. Well, you know, somehow I have managed to become the succulent pest person. Sometimes I feel like well, I'd say a doctor, but more like a veterinarian for plants, because people, oh my gosh, something infests their plants, their succulents, and they're sending me photos and asking me what to do. Of course, I have a ton of information on it, but alomite is a flea bite compared to snout weevil. Yes, it's unsightly. It's a cancerous growth that infests aloes, and it gets in the system of the plant, and you can't really get rid of it, but you can cut it out. You can excise it. I make a point of never giving infested aloes to anyone who might want a cutting. And I always have my gardener go around and make sure that there is no visible alomite. But then I'm all about appearances. If I was a purist, I might get rid of a lot more of my plants. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, it's unsightly, it's probably more widespread than ever because there are more aloes than ever. But I can't get too excited about it.
Okay.
Oh, Okay, the question is, she has a Dazzlerian wheeleri, and it has created an inflorescence, a bloom stalk. How tall is it? 15 feet, yeah. So, okay. Laura Pasternak lives across the street from me, and from her driveway, she can see my Dazzlerian wheeleri, which has an inflorescence, a bloom spike of about 15 feet. And we were just sure it was going to go over in this last storm. It didn't. And this is the first time that has bloomed. So I have the same question you do. I don't know what's going to happen to that. I just admire it. I mean, it's a talk of the street. And if anybody out there in the audience or elsewhere, if it's a male, it'll grow from you cut it off where? Right at, chop it off like right, okay, so you chop it off at the base where the leaves are, and then it'll bifurcate, it'll split. Oh, and then will the Dazzlerian create two different heads? Okay, well, I want your contact information because you're gonna try it first and let me know how it goes.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the use of mushroom compost? Is it good to incorporate with all succulents? And is there an alternative that is far away or hard to get? Not hard to get, I think is the.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so obviously not everybody lives 15 minutes away from a mushroom farm where they can get free mushroom compost. I have to tell you though, the wife of the owner of the mushroom farm had one of the finest succulent gardens that I've ever seen. So clearly mushroom compost is great for growing succulents in. As far as what to use instead, I have a page on my site dedicated to soil. So DeborahLeeBaldwin.com, type soil in the search bar, it'll take you there. A lot depends on your own native soil, how well it drains, the composition of it, decomposed granite or clay. It's not a one-size-fits-all type of answer. And I defer to the landscape designers here in the audience. They might want to share their answer to this as far as, okay, no mushroom compost available for this dear person. What would you recommend instead? So let's ask Laura Eubanks, what would you do instead? Okay, so amended topsoil. Okay. I didn't quite catch all of that, but I think amended topsoil would be the answer. And Randy? Same thing. Yeah. Okay. Good. That was easy.
That was easy. How to wipe out scale on a heart-shaped Hoya.
Oh boy. You have scale on your heart-shaped Hoya. Oh, that's a heartbreaker. Oh, don't let me end on that, please. Well, you know, you could probably just scrape it off with your fingernail if it's not terrible. There are soaps that you can use. There are insecticidal soaps that you can use to scrub plants with that are good with scale. If the infestation has really taken hold and it's all over the plant and it's probably falling off and endangering other plants, it's time to put it in the trash, in a bag. You know, don't let that happen. It's always good for me to know when you ask me a pest question, where you're located and whether or not the plant is indoors or out. Because scale and a lot of little insects will infest indoor plants where they won't go after the ones outdoor. outdoors because of air circulation. It's a big issue. As far as scale goes, I don't mess with it. I just lost too many plants from it. And once it gets hold, it can be really, really difficult to control. But if it's just a few little spots on a heart-shaped Hoya, yeah, just scrape them off and, you know, maybe treat it with some insecticide. So, but watch it. If they come back, they'll spread.
Any more in the room? Okay. So there's a Canadian import on Zoom to Fresno. Big fan of yours and Laura's. In Fresno, they've just had a long heat wave up to 115 degrees. They're down to in the 90s, 70 and 80s overnight. And their surviving plants seem fairly desperate. I'm so sorry. How long shall I wait, and how far does the high temp need to drop before I can somewhat safely water? Any other advice? Thanks again. And then somebody else said, please answer their question. Oh, you want it back? There you go. Huh.
Okay, so you're concerned about,
Okay, to the Canadian transplant in Fresno, you're asking when you can water during this extreme heat wave. And my question is, why haven't you been? I mean, is there something I don't know about watering at 115 degrees, like you're not supposed to do it? I honestly, I think, you know, please don't tell my neighbors, but or my water company, but I have been watering a lot during this last heat wave, and I do feel guilty about it. But you know, some of those plants have been with me for decades, and I'm not going to lose them. I'm sorry. Can we just delete that last answer? Okay, Lucy, thank you. Lucy Warren. Yes, I appreciate that. I think she must, Lucy pointed out that they're probably asking about the time to water. What time of the day to water? And early in the morning is ideal. That's the best time to water. Yeah. Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone on Zoom, for putting up with the fact that we're unable to sync the screens inside here and on Zoom, but you guys are a wonderfully resilient group. And
oh, and
yes,
and I will be at the book table in the other room if you want to stop by and chat or buy a book.
and
Thank
just
you.
to remind you, next month, it's not on Monday, it's on Tuesday. It's not at 6, it's at 3. It's not here, it's at San Diego Botanic Garden. And it's not on Zoom, it's only in person. Okay? So let's see you all there next month. Thanks, everyone.